And we're live. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It is quarantine chat, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go through the NL Central now, which to me is another really interesting division this year.
It is interesting. As far as the quarantine chat goes, man, I check ESPN like multiple times till every day, and it's like always the same nothingness. Man, can't wait till this is over. As far as the NL Central goes, I was thinking a lot about this because we had a little bit of time in between videos. Like, just thinking about and making these videos shows me how much better the AL is than the NL. We haven't gotten to the best team in the NL yet, the Dodgers, but even in that last division, like all those teams are solid, but none of those teams really stand out to me.
Well, who really stands out to you in the AL?
Okay, so I knew you were going to say that because Houston, you expect to take a step back. No one really stands out like that, which I guess really means that there's no team at least going in that stands out above the rest, which I like. But I do think that the teams in the AL, like the Yankees, the Astros, I'll still put up there because they just won won the AL, et cetera, 100 and however many wins. Those teams are better on paper than the teams in the NL.
Okay. I'm not going to poo-poo that argument. I do think it's closer than you do, but to each his own on this one. Again, when we talked about the American League East, we made some good points for the Rays and the Blue Jays, but ultimately we both sided with the Yankees. We think it's Twins, Indians, and then we talked about Astros, possibly Athletics. It's tight up here. This is another one, the Central. Last year, Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs were fighting it out for a long time. Ultimately, St. Louis pulled it off, and Milwaukee sneaked into the wild card. Cubs faded a little bit towards the end, going 2-8 in their last 10 games. And Cincy was a little disappointing, but they're supposed to be better this year. Kind of like some of these other divisions, picking the last place team is easy. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's not even debatable. In fact, if you tried to debate me on this one, I will just tell you you're wrong.
Pittsburgh might be the worst team in baseball this year.
They're not good.
They're set up, yeah, they're even worse than they've been.
I mean, like, they have Joe Musgrove on ESPN listed as their number one pitcher. They don't have who's the guy I'm thinking of from Pittsburgh that's been a solid pitcher I've always liked more than you have the last couple of years?
Is he still there?
I don't know. That was my question. I thought he was. I didn't remember him going somewhere else. Hurt. Man, why can I not think of this cat?
I know who you're talking about, too.
And now you do? Okay.
I know who you're talking about, but I'll figure.
I've got to know now. You're going to look up their roster?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So, I mean, there's some guys on the Pirates that you can envision having good years. You know, Josh Bell had a great month last. You got a couple of young guys like Kevin Newman, Brian Reynolds. Gregory Polanco's never healthy. Has never achieved what you wanted him to do. This is just not a very good roster in the slightest.
Jamison Taillon.
Thank you. What happened with him? Is he hurt or did he go somewhere else?
He's hurt. He's out for the year.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think he was on another team, but I didn't realize he was hurt for the whole year.
The team is bad, okay? He was bad last year. Not pathetically bad, but, now they don't have – I'm pretty sure he's out for the year. I'll check on that.
Well, if you don't have Taillon and Marte, that's your best offensive player and your best pitcher.
Exactly. So, I mean, again, they've got a couple nice young pieces. Josh Bell's a big-time signs in the first half last year. Polanco is very hit or miss. They're just not good. I mean, they're the worst team in this division by a good amount.
So then you get to a point where the Reds, to me, are a lot like the White Sox, where you kind of expect that this could be their year to really emerge. Blue Jays kind of like them a little bit. Like, you think there's possibilities they could really get better. Only they're not doing it with rookies. They're just doing it with the collection of veterans that they have required. And I guess we just don't know how they're going to gel. But on paper, I like the Reds a lot.
Same. I like them more even, I think, like the White Sox, certainly the Blue Jays. They've got a lot of nice pieces, man. They've got a good pitching staff. Their lineup's good. I don't expect them to finish fourth this year.
Neither do I. I don't really know how to rank the four teams in this division. Nothing I can tell you guys for the rest of the video is going to come with a lot of conviction or confidence. I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Reds won this division. It is really difficult to come on YouTube or live video, though, and call for Cincinnati to win anything because you just haven't seen it.
No, but on paper, they in my opinion, they have the best team in the division on paper.
I'm with you because look at that pitching staff. I mean,
Yeah,
Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo. It's
that
not quite, Scherzer, Strasburg, Corbin, but at the end of the year, if they're a top 5 starting 3, like nobody bats an eye at that.
it's right there with the Washington. It's right below.
Yeah, okay, because Castillo is an emerging stud. Trevor Bauer did not pitch great for Cincinnati last year, but offseason, get adjusted. It's not a great ballpark for pitching, but you know how good he is.
I have faith in Trevor Bauer. Now, maybe that's biased because I've seen him do it so many times, but you're right. Like, I'm not writing him off. The fact of the matter, he's their number 3. And then Sonny Gray, like, it seems like just being in New York wasn't good for him. He was awesome in Oakland. We loved him. And now he's in Cincy. He's been really good. So their staff is good, man. They added some nice pieces on offense, like a couple real good hitters that we like in Moustakas and Castellanos. I mean, it's hard not to like this team.
I want to just reiterate how good Sonny Gray is because he was not good in New York. And when you're in, you play for the Yankees, one of the most storied franchises in the history of sports, if not the most storied franchise in the history of sports, with an ERA approaching 5, a whip of 1.5. I mean, that's not good. Let's call it like it is. He was just not good for them. But last year, the year before that, I mean, other than that, and he had a bad season for Oakland in 2016 that a lot of people remember, this is a guy who's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons in his career with an ERA under 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lot better than a bunch of the number ones we've gone through on all these teams.
Definitely. No questions about it. That's not even an arguable point. And then we talk about your boy Trevor Bauer, and he was not good for Cincy last year. When he came over, he had an ERA of almost 6.5. It was awful. But this is a guy who's been very good for the couple seasons before that. I will say, like in your mind, if I asked most people who's better, Trevor Bauer or Sonny Gray, who do you think they would say?
Oh, definitely Bauer.
Okay, but I think that's the DFS in this with all the strikeouts. Sonny Gray has actually been, for his career, a more consistent and better pitcher than Trevor Bauer.
At their best, I still think Bauer is a little better. But you're right. I trust Gray more at this point. If Bauer pitches like he did, he wasn't even good for Cleveland last year before he got traded.
His 2018 season was really good, though.
Yeah, if he pitches like that for Cincy, I mean, with Castillo and Sonny Gray, look out. Because, again, their lineup was good last year. And now you can make the argument that this is one of the best lineups in baseball.
It's a good lineup. They're weak at first base and catcher. Well, I wouldn't say Tucker Barnhart's weak. Joey Votto, unfortunately, is not the guy he once was. But having just watched Moustakas play for 1.5 years in Milwaukee, he's a good hitter who also gets big hits. We're both big Suarez fans. And then they got good outfielders. Castellanos is a guy who's been a 5-pack darling for 2 years right now. You're a Nick Senzel guy. I don't know much about the kid coming from Japan, but apparently they signed him for a reason. So this is going to be a good offense.
And then your boy Aquino, somehow he's going to see at bats, ton of power. I really like the Moustakas and Castellanos signing. Those guys are cut from the same cloth, in my opinion. 2 professional hitters. It's hard not to like those additions.
It's not. So let's actually review each team real quickly before we kind of make our plays. So again, we both come up on Cincinnati.
Like you said, though, sorry to interrupt you, but we've been going top to bottom or bottom to, it's hard for this division because I could see any of the teams we're about to talk about winning or finishing in 4th or anywhere in between. This is the most wide open division. Now, it might not end up being like that, but like the Cubs, I could easily see them winning the division. I mean,
absolutely.
Honestly, on paper, they might have the best roster here. But they could also take a step back and finish in 4th.
Yeah, I didn't even realize they got your boy Kip, and it's not that he's any version of a difference maker or anything like that, but the Chicago Cubs lineup is good.
It's good.
We know how good Baez is. Right now, Baez is probably the most feared hitter in that lineup. Anthony Rizzo's the most consistent, and then Chris Bryant is, if we could ever get back to the MVP form, we know that his ceiling is right up there with the Baez and maybe the highest on the team.
Yeah, I mean, their lineup is good with upside. And then you got guys like Schwarber, who's never lived up to it, but maybe one year can put it together.
Hits for a lot of power still.
Yeah, exactly. Jason Hayward has shown signs of actually living up to that contract. Maybe he can put it together. This lineup, it's got depth. If they all play well, I mean, there's a team. it's mostly the same team that won the World Series, a few years ago, on offense at least. Now their pitching staff is a little different, but on offense it's much the same team. So it's not crazy to think that they could play well again.
Again, Ian Happ is also another guy that has showed promise from time to time. Hasn't been able to get in together for a long enough period of time. Steven Souza Jr. comes in as a solid fill-in piece, potentially coming off an off year in Arizona, dealing with injuries. Wilson Contreras taking a couple steps back the last 2 years, but he's still a very young man who could easily bounce back this season. There's a lot of potential on the Chicago Cubs team. And then you get down to the pitching staff, and we'll start with the closer, Craig Kimbrell, who was not good last year after an extended layoff. We've seen that before. Not surprised. I don't think that he's done. He could easily go back to being one of the better closers in baseball.
I think he does go back to be one of the better closers in baseball. While I normally kind of poo-poo the Cubs pitching staff, after going through most of these staffs, this staff is definitely, mediocre at worst.
Okay, that's a good way to put it, because we spent some time on a video we did the other day talking about John Lester. John Lester's been really up and down since his heyday back in Boston. He's had good years and he's had bad years. There's no reason that I can't come here and tell you that John Lester doesn't have a good year this year.
Exactly, and a lot of these guys are like that.
You got Hendricks eating up innings, more solid than spectacular, but guys like that are underappreciated.
Definitely. You feel good about him, especially at home. We've talked about that on the DFS note, but you don't feel good about Chatwood in your fifth role, but maybe they got another guy coming up. Who knows? Talent-wise, they're right there with Cincy, and I got to trust the Cubs more because they've been there at this point.
Okay, let's take a look at St. Louis, who won the division last year. To me,
sorry, the one thing I want to say, I didn't say it before. Of all these teams, I feel like the only team that got better, though, was Cincy.
Agreed. No arguments on that one. Looking at the St. Louis Cardinals, I expect them to not win the division. I am still deciding as we talk this through who I'm going to pick as my winner on this video. It will not be St. Louis, though. I think Jack Flaherty is probably as good as any starter in this division. And then for my money, the loss of Ozuna is big for a team that wasn't that good offensively last year. DeYoung hits for power, but not average. That is an outfield with a lot of question marks. There's some potential in Bader and O'Neill, but a lot of question marks. Paul Goldschmidt is not the guy that he was 5 years ago. For me, this might actually be my least favorite of these four teams on paper. The only reason I give him a chance is because St. Louis is just a great, well-run franchise. It always seems to be right there, no matter who's on the roster.
I don't disagree with that point, either of those points, but it's close enough too. It's not like the other rosters are that much better, in my opinion. Honestly, I think that Chicago and Cincinnati are the top two, if we're talking about just those four. And then St. Louis is kind of comparable to Milwaukee, in my opinion. We'll get to Milwaukee after this.
Okay.
So for me, you kind of mentioned it, but if Tyler O'Neill can kind of come in and replace Ozuna, then I think that they could be similar to last year. But I don't know if, a lot of question marks, like you said. They've just straight up lost Ozuna. They didn't even add anyone. So they're counting on those young guys. I don't know if I expect Flaherty to pitch as well this year. And then after that, they have question marks throughout the last half of their rotation.
They have question marks about their whole rotation outside of Jack Flaherty. Miles Michaelis he's fine. Yeah. He's nothing more than fine.
Agreed. All those guys are just fine. Who knows what Carlos Martinez, I guess, is a big wild card, but I don't expect, the old Carlos Martinez coming back at any point.
Mm-mm. On paper, for me, this is clearly the fourth worst team in the division. I actually think the Brewers have more going for them than the St. Louis Cardinals. The only thing I can say about St. Louis is it doesn't seem to matter in a lot of ways that the Patriots do it. It doesn't seem to matter what they have on their roster. They usually find a way to be competitive.
This is true.
So it's a well-run organization. I hate the Cardinals because they've always beat up on my teams in the NL Central, but I respect the hell out of them.
How could you not?
All right, so let's move over to my Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, also just on the Cardinals, a big guy that they don't have in the lineup right there that's going to be big for them is Matt Carpenter.
He does nothing for me personally.
Well, I think that he's a big guy in their lineup. If he can get going again, I think his lack of production last year really hurt them.
Outside of that great 2-month run where it was one of the I didn't like it because he's a Cardinal, but one of the more impressive things that I can remember, like, you know how it is, like, you've been watching baseball consistently for what now, like 25 to 30 years?
Yeah.
That was one of the best month to two stretches I've ever seen a ball player have.
Yeah, it was incredible.
But, I
I
mean, you
just love
take
that
that
about
up.
baseball.
What's that?
I just love that about baseball.
I mean, you take that out of the equation, though. This guy's batting about 230 over the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And his only power really came in that 2 month stretch.
I mean, you're not wrong about that. I just think, like, for me, they're going to need someone like that to be really good to replace Ozuna.
Yeah, I agree. I struggle to see a 33-year-old having a big bounce back season because from what I've seen the last 3 years, and I watch a lot of Cardinals baseball because they're playing the Brewers consistently or playing the Cubs. I mean, other than that 2 month stretch where, again, you can't take that away from him. It was incredible. I mean, incredible. He just hasn't been very good.
No, but he does have 3 top 12 MVP, performances in his career.
Sure, but 2 of those are 5 years ago or more.
No lie. I mean, no argument there. Can't argue
All right.
it.
So let's talk about my Milwaukee Brewers. Pitching staff, I'm a big Brandon Woodruff fan. Adrian Hauser was really good down the stretch last year, but it's not a strong pitching staff. Not in the slightest.
No, it's not. Again, I also like what the Brewers have going. Like, I like Craig Counsell, so he'll get the best out of these guys, but their pitching staff is not great by any means. It's like the Cubs is mediocre at worst. They're mediocre at best, in my opinion.
Now, I started to read an interesting article on the Milwaukee Brewers that I didn't realize it was a pay thing. So after I got through the first couple paragraphs, they asked me to pay for it. And it was a non-Milwaukee related writer, a national media guy, who was saying that for the third straight year, I'm going to call for the Brewers not to be very good. But at this point, I kind of feel like I'm wrong on this one because they keep proving me wrong. He goes, Craig Counsell finds a way to get this team to win. And when they shouldn't, he pulls the right moves. Getting Corey Knebel back this year, and I think they might ultimately put him back in the closer position and move Josh Hader back into that flex type of reliever. I think it'd be really big for them. Forcing them to use Josh Hader last year in the closing position it hurt them. It hurt them a lot.
It definitely did. Man, their lineup is good though. Like, it's good. I mean, obviously you've got a guy in Yelich. Like, their lineup is very good. I don't want to say it's
Kane
great.
Had an off year last year. It's not great. It's not great. It's good. And that part of that to me depends is Keston Hiura all that we saw in him last year? Or does he take a little bit of a sophomore slump? Because he appeared to be one of the 30 best hitters in baseball while he was up, but we've seen young men do this before. See Rhys Hoskins, and then it did not accumulate after that.
Agreed. And I like Avisel Garcia. I'm a big fan. But I also feel like him and Braun are pretty similar at this point.
Yeah, and Braun since he stopped juicing, you just can't stay healthy consistently, which, again, I think you're going to see Yelich play every day, Kane play, 6 out of 7 games, and then Garcia and Braun will move around. And it's not crazy to think that if, like, Smoke or Logan Morrison don't work out, which, let's face it, that's a distinct possibility, I think you'll see Braun play some first base.
Definitely. 100% agreed. I could not agree more. I mean, I think that's a wait-and-see approach. Smoke, whoever starts the year is going to have to hit if they want to keep their job. Let's just put it like that.
Absolutely have to hit. So a guy also that we can bring up, and again, I just want to reiterate how good Keston Hiura was when he came up last year. Batted .303, 19 home runs and 314 at-bats. He can run the bases a little bit. Got big hits when it mattered. I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with. So if he can replicate that, that's big for Milwaukee's offense. But another guy I know you're a fan of, and you talked about him a lot last year when doing, daily fantasy sports write-ups, is going to be Omar Narvaez. And while maybe he doesn't have the name recognition of a Yasmani Grandal, he was just as good of a hitter last year.
I'd rather have Grandal, but I like Narvaez a lot.
Okay. You trust Grandal more. Good pitch framer. Pedigree. He's been doing it for a while. But just on offensive alone, Grandal is very streaky. And he would carry that team for a week or two. And then, I remember at one point last year, I think he went 6 or 7 weeks without a home run.
Yeah, he's definitely very streaky. We talked about that a lot last year. I'm a Narvaez fan, so I think he can come in and basically I think he can produce as well as Grandal, but more consistently.
Yeah, kind of a wash offensively. I don't know much
Yes.
about his defense as a catcher. I'll be watching that closely this year, assuming we play. But the guy's a 276 career hitter, consistently gets the bat on the ball, which is big, I think, in modern baseball, that you get a couple of players who can actually hit the ball consistently. And then what the Brewers did is they loaded up on a bunch of guys who have had seasons, have not been consistent, and hoping you can get something out of them, i.e. Justin Smoke, who's never achieved the way you've wanted him to, but he's had some nice years. Logan Morrison, not good last year, but 2 years ago he was a stud. Yurko is a utility guy in the back end, and then they picked up this Luis Urias kid in exchange for Trent Grisham, who, I mean, I don't know how much you know about him, but there's reason to be encouraged by him.
Yeah, big reason. I mean, Grisham's good. Urias is good. I mean, they wanted to solidify, their infield, and I think that he's a guy that's gonna, he's gonna be a starter for them going forward. I'm not sure if he's hurt or like what the deal is to start the year. But yeah, the only problem, not that it's a problem because it's just the nature of the beast, is it's going to be hard for Milwaukee to get like those guys. Well, first off, Morrison and Smoke. I mean, I don't know if they're both going to make the roster. It's going to be hard to get those guys at bats, especially because there's no DH.
I just can't really picture Eric Sogard being the everyday third baseman.
Yeah.
I struggle to see that as a thing. I think you're more realistically might see a Urias playing some third base, or maybe Hira ends up moving over there because it's not like he plays second base efficiently.
I mean, listen, Grisham was like good for Milwaukee last year, and he was a highly regarded prospect. So was Urias. Like, I think he's a guy that is in Milwaukee's long-term plans.
I would agree.
When they first traded for him, I had heard, some, between him and Arcia, and obviously Arcia is a great shortstop that, he was going to play third or potentially, second. I don't know if Hero could move to first, like you talked about. I think it's, we'll see what happens in Milwaukee.
Wherever you move Hira, he's not good defensively, so that is an issue. You've got some good defenders. This is an elite defensive outfield with Yelich, Kane, and Braun. Lorenzo Kane is as solid as any outfielder in the game defensively. Yelich is a Gold Glove outfielder. And while Braun isn't flashy, he makes all the plays, and his arm strength may not be great, but he's extremely accurate from the outfield. So you have a wonderful defensive outfield. Orlando Arcia can pick it with the best of them. But Hira is an absolute liability in the field.
Yeah, agreed. So that means kind of putting him at first isn't the worst idea, assuming, the Smokes and Morrisons of the world don't pan out.
For sure. So we've kind of talked them through. I do think the pitching staff, while not good, you can shorten the innings with a guy like Knebel back in the ninth if you go that route. You have Hader in the games that you're winning. And you have guys like Brent Suter, who pitched pretty well 2 years ago before the major injury, that you could get good things out of. Eric Lauer is a young guy that's not a bad pitching prospect. Hauser was good down the stretch last year, like real good. You remember that?
I do. He was really good. So there's definitely upside here.
So it's not a great staff by any stretch of the imagination. But at the end of the year, would you be flabbergasted if the Milwaukee Brewers starting rotation had numbers much in line with the Chicago Cubs?
No, I wouldn't. And also, just going through these teams, it seems like generally the hitting is better than the pitching.
Yeah. I mean, Cincinnati could be the one team that you could argue their pitching's better, but
I'm just talking about across the landscape of baseball.
Okay, gotcha. I like Cincy's pitchers. They could be better than their hitters, but I also like their hitters, so it's more just a compliment to their pitching staff.
Same. I look at a team like, the Indians and Nationals as kind of exceptions that have like better rotations than lineups.
All right, so gun to head, if you had to pick the way that this division finishes, the only thing that I know that we 100% agree upon is definitely we got Pittsburgh in last, and it could be a distant last place. I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh is 15 games worse than the other four teams.
Oh, yeah, me too, at least.
So they could definitely look like the Marlins, where they are 24 games back from the fourth place team. In fact, I could really see the NL Central shaping up a lot like the way that this division played out last year in the NL East, where you got four teams within 15 games of another, and then one team who's the absolute pariah or black sheep.
Agreed.
So, all right, gun to head, you want to go first or second?
I'll go second. You go first. It's your division.
All right, gun to head, I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Reds to win the division. The more we break this down, the more we look at these teams, It doesn't work this way in baseball. All you big baseball fans out there know this, that the best team on paper doesn't always win the division. But I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Reds to come out of this division for the first time in a while, and I got them in first place.
Okay. You want me to go with my first, or you want me to?
Sure, why don't you go ahead? We'll go every other.
All right, my first place, and after talking this out, like I feel not confident about it because all these teams are close. I think the Cubs win the division. I think they bounce back a year for them. A lot of those same pieces that have been successful. So give me the Cubs.
Okay. I was back and forth between the intangibles of Milwaukee and the Chicago Cubs, but ultimately I am going to pick the Cubs in second place. I think a new voice in the locker room could play out big for them.
Yeah, agreed. Big time. A guy that they like and know, and David Ross. I'm 100% with you there. That's another reason why I have them winning. I have the Reds in second. You talked about it. I'm buying. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they win the division. We talked about all four of these teams that are close.
I'm going to put Milwaukee in third. I'm not a big fan of the St. Louis's roster overall. I'm a big Flaherty guy. I'm not a big believer in what they're doing. And in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that they're Cardinals, I might predict them not to be very good.
Yeah. I'm gonna put Milwaukee third for those reasons. It's close for me though between Milwaukee and St. Louis. I think that the top two teams, in my opinion, have better rosters on paper than the Cardinals and Brewers.
Agreed. Oh, I don't think there's any argument that the Cubs and Reds on paper are significantly better than St. Louis and better than Milwaukee. What Milwaukee and St. Louis have going is St. Louis is always there. We've talked about that at length on this show alone. It's just an organization that knows how to win. And the Brewers, under current management, look like a team that knows how to win under Craig Counsell, which is why I give them credit. And I give both of those teams still a possibility to come out of this division. But I'm going to go Cincy, Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis.
I'm gonna switch up Cincy and Chicago, but agree with you on the rest. So we see this very similarly.
Yeah, okay. I like when we can kind of come out to this one on kind of an even edge or agreement, if you want to look at it that way. And it's a good division, though. I mean, this is not one where we can come out in the back-to-back divisions where it's kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, the next division is going to be a breeze. So, yeah.
Right. It's clearly the Giants.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is no easier division to predict than the West.
Agreed. I like the Padres' potential this year, but there isn't enough stuff lying around to smoke right now to have me not pick the Dodgers. No,
I mean, how could you not? They got back the same team and then added Mookie Betts and David Price, this team is loaded. This team is the best team in the majors. So that definitely tilts the swing to the NL a little bit.
All right. Well, we're going to hang up on this one. Appreciate everybody who gives the thumbs up to the videos, helps spread us around YouTube. Any version of entertainment is good at this point.
Yep. Thanks, guys.